So, the summer's over. The talking stops now. For Manchester United, it's 2026, 2027. New season starts tomorrow, but right here at the same time. And obviously, it's Hull versus Manchester United. How are we feeling, people, against Hull City? Going into the new season, we'll get into things as always. Obviously, on paper, people will look at this as an easy fixture, but is there an easy fixture for Manchester United? Have we had moments where we struggle against promoted sides? But again, we'll look into how Hull City are shaping up. Don't know too much about them, if I'm honest. But again, this is Manchester United. Anything is possible. And it's football. Anything is possible. And like I say, the new season brings, for us anyway, new hope, new expectations with Carrick, a new pressure for the players and the new players coming in. And we'll talk about that as well. So for today, we're looking ahead for the first game of the season. It's away. I believe it should have been at home, but they sort of asked the Premier League to reschedule things because they were pissing about with the pitch, although I'd been to Old Trafford recently on the tour. That's me there. And the pitch is looking amazing, to be fair. So let's see how we get on in the new season. So anyway, what do we expect from Hull City? What are we going to expect from this team? What are we going to expect from this newly promoted side? Don't know too much about them, as I was saying already. What does success look like for you guys watching in terms of the opening game? What are you expecting to see? What are you expecting from Manchester United in this opening game? And can Manchester United and Michael Carrick start massive and get the big 3 points that we need to get ourselves underway? So anyway, let's get into things. Like I was saying, welcome back to Dan Talks United. Welcome back to anybody that's been watching recently. Obviously, it's the new season. We're going to get into things. We're going to talk. We're going to have shows after matches, as I was doing last season. And hopefully, we can make this bigger this time round. It is a little bit early this time on Friday. Normally, I might go live around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And appreciate there might be a lot of people still working. But anyway, it's going out there. You can make your comments afterwards. I will always look at those comments as well and respond where I can. So as I was saying, the Premier League is back. Manchester United are back. And yeah, we're just ready for this, ready for the new season. It feels like it's been away for months. Obviously, we've had the World Cup. And then we've had this transfer window that seems to have dragged. But we are going to talk about things as well when we get into that. And again, if anybody does join, because I know it's a little bit earlier than normal, please put your comments in as normal. Let's have a chat about things. But we are just going to cover how we feel against Hull. This is a preview. Hull City versus Manchester United. Going to have obviously a chat about that. We'll have a chat about transfers that we've done so far and potentially pending transfer that we feel is coming up as well. So we'll, like I say, we'll get into things. Manchester United, we're back. It's Michael Carrick still. It's his first full season as well, starting off and kicking off from the start after he took over from Amorim. So can he do it now? The pressure's on now. Can he do it? He's not the saviour anymore. He's not Mr. Hero. It's actually his team. And he's the number one coach now, starting the season. And have Manchester United helped him? And this is the thing. So this is just a bit of a mock-up image of beavering away in the boardroom. Are they actually doing anything? Is Wilcox, Favell, Barada, you name it, in the boardroom, trying to get signings over the line? It's gone very, very quiet. Very, very quiet after that Tillerman's deal. So are we doing anything? What's actually happening? So anyway, I'm just going to have a quick sort of look at stuff around that and what we think about signings, what we think about the spend, how we feel about the other teams around us, and then we'll get into things in regards to the preview against Hull City and where we think we're going to be, what the predictions are, score predictions, you name it. So as I was saying there, we're just going to put this up as well. And this is the net spend so far in the Premier League and where we're at. So Chelsea there are at the top, 207 million. Now this has probably changed because this is probably a week or two old now. Even Ipswich Town, who we've got second, it's our second fixture in the Premier League, have spent more than us. You can see Arsenal there third, and that's about where you'd expect Arsenal to be, just to keep their foot on our necks, basically, because they've won the league last season. They don't have to do as much as we have to do. David Ornstein was saying that we were going to be the busiest team, or he felt we were going to be the busiest team in the transfer market. I expected that to be the case as well, because we had a lot to do, and it doesn't feel like we've done very much. Coventry are there in fourth, Liverpool, City. Obviously, the City keeps spending. We won't get into that. We don't want to get sued. Spurs, they've done all right so far, and Spurs will have gone up now because is it Savinho, is he called, from City, and Mamouche that are looking to buy a double sort of swoop there on City, and putting some more money in City's coffers. So again, I'm not going to go for them all, but you can see us there languishing down there in 13th. So hopefully this isn't a reflection of the actual league itself. So yeah, it is pretty embarrassing in a sense, really, in terms of spend. And I'm just going to quickly, what was I going to share now? Quickly, yeah. So just to go on to, because again, we're going to see how our team's shaping up. We're going to talk about the team. We're going to talk about predicted lineup. I normally share something on Foot Mob, so we'll have a look at that. And just a couple of bits of news here in terms of Rashford. So what Rashford is saying is he only wants to play for Manchester United if he was to stay in the Premier League. He doesn't want to play, so obviously you can't see all the shirts there, but he's basically saying he doesn't want to play for Liverpool, doesn't want to play for Chelsea, doesn't want to play for Arsenal. He only wants to play for Manchester United, the Red of Manchester United. Now, obviously, if Barcelona were to knock on his door again, I'm sure he'd go. But what he's saying is he wants to settle, he wants to get his head down, and he wants to put everything behind him. So we'll see if we get the Rashford that we've seen in the past. We'll see if we get that Barcelona Rashford, to be fair. I'm not sure we'll get that Rashford that first broke onto the scene. Very explosive, very pace-driven, quite skillful, wicked shot on him. I don't know. He did all right for England, World Cup, did all right for Barcelona. He's won the La Liga, so, you know, he's coming back with that medal around his neck. What do you guys think? Are you having this guy back? And I know I've probably asked this in probably a lot of the shows recently, but you're having this guy back. Are you having Rashford back in the squad? Let's see. Now, there seemed to be a confusion over his number. There was top journals saying that he was getting the number 14 shirt. He ends up in the number 9 shirt in pre-season, that last game. But we'll see. Is a number a problem to you? I don't know. As long as he's not getting Cunha's number 10, I'm not bothered. And then lastly, before we get into the actual preview itself, Bruno, just really quickly, it looks like there is contract talks ongoing, as said here by Ben Jacobs. This has been a few days ago again. These talks have seemingly gone on for a bit. Hopefully he's going to agree the new deal. There is that silly release clause that he's got in his contract currently. I'm sure it's just short of £60 million. So any sort of European squad, any European club could trigger that. So if he got fed up, he could really go at any time, really. So that can be a concern, but obviously I haven't got time to go into whether Bruno impacts the way we want to play and all that sort of stuff. That's been a lot of things that's been spoken about recently, that people feel that Bruno might disrupt the way that Carrick wants to play this season. That's an interesting one, but that's for another day probably. So that's Bruno. Hopefully he does sign. Obviously he's top quality players. He was pretty much the best player in the Premier League last season. Got the assist record. He's always going to be creative. I'm looking forward to see how he can link up properly with Tielemans, and obviously letting Tielemans playing through the lines and finding him higher up the pitch, because Bruno likes to come deep and he likes to sort of just wander around the pitch. We just need him to stay focused and stay at the top end of the pitch. Okay, so that's that. Like I say, in terms of spend, as we know, and I'll quickly just throw this up as well in terms of our new well, hopefully our new signing coming through the door. Sorry, no, that's me. Belabor. And is he the missing piece? Is he the missing piece? Because we've got Tielemans and Santos. We've got Meno already. We know that Tielemans is quite technical. He raises the technical floor alongside Santos. Santos has been playing deeper, more of that number 6 role when he was playing with Mount in pre-season, and more of that holding role. But none of them really, and including Meno, none of them really have that aggression, that strength, that recoverability when other teams are on the attack against us, or if we was to lose the ball. Whereas Belabor has got that high energy, he's got that aggression, he's got that strength, and he's not bad on the ball, and he can carry as well up the pitch. So I think, and obviously last season wasn't great, but the season before that, I would say that is the sort of profile of the missing piece that we need. Now, obviously, I'm not getting too carried away because, again, I can't say that he's finished. He's only about 22 years old, but last season he didn't have a great season. I don't know whether he was impacted by the speculation that he was going to come to Manchester United and the fact that he didn't get his move. And obviously, Brighton didn't really price him out of a move. They just weren't entertaining a transfer. So has he been impacted by that? Has that impacted his and also, I mean, obviously he played well under De Zerbi. There's Hertzler there now. Does that work? Does he connect? Is he getting the love that he needs? Is he getting that environment that he needs to really flourish? So I don't know. Maybe I'm just making excuses to fit him into the side. But we've got to remember he hasn't had a good season last season. I think he might have had 1 or 2 games that he played all right, but he had been hooked off. I think it was 4 times he got hooked off at half time, I think, by Hertzler. He didn't start a lot of games, I believe, either. So it was a combination of not starting and being subbed off pretty early. So not a good sign, and hopefully can recover from that if we do get him over the line. Now, reports are saying you're looking at in between 65 and 75 million to get it over the line. I think they have pretty much rejected the sort of 60 plus. I'm assuming it's sort of like a 60 plus 5 offer so far, which it looks like Brighton have rejected. But it's not a case of completely out of hand, rejected, no way. It sounds like they're pretty close in the numbers, but maybe Brighton are looking closer to 75 million rather than the 60, 65. So obviously there were reports that Newcastle was sort of sniffing around and was sort of looking to put 65 down on the table. And that's probably woke up Manchester United thinking, we're not going to let you go to Newcastle. Although Belabor is saying that he's sitting tight. He only wants Manchester United, and that's the only team he wants anyway. So I'm sure that Newcastle will fade back. It's a bit like that. I think it's that image of like the Simpsons, is it Homer, where he sort of goes back into the bushes. I think it's a little bit like that, where they'll start to just, retreat because they've lost a few times against us in the transfer market. Anyway, we still need to do more, as I'm saying. And before we move on into the game against Hull, and again, anybody watching, put in your score predictions because we're going to get to that section anyway. But how are you feeling about this game against Hull? So moving on to what we feel is going to be the additions for the midfield. If the Belabor one gets across the line, we've already got Tielemans through the door. We've already got Santos through the door. We decided not to push ahead with Edison, which I agreed with, by the way. I'm not a fan of Edison. And then Belabor could be that missing piece and could be the one that pretty much can play with all the other midfielders that we've got. And he's really the one that can play with the rest of them in a sense. Now, I think Santos has also got that ability to do the same, to be fair, because I think he plays that little bit deeper. But Belabor, again, I'm only looking at Belabor from the season, not last season, the season before, when he had a good season. And we were all excited that we were probably going to get him through the door last transfer window in the summer. I'm going back to then, and I think everybody has to go back to them because we all know he didn't have a great season last season. But if he was to come in, he can play with Tielemans because Tielemans needs a player like him. Now, if you listen to the Villa fans, they're all saying Tielemans is excellent, but he does need someone behind him like an Onana or like a Kamara or like a McGinn. He needs that a bit of strength behind him. That's person that's going to be disciplined and sit behind him so that he can foray forward and sort of pick out passes and stuff like that. So you can definitely play with Tielemans, you can definitely play with Santos, but you'd probably find that would be a little bit more defensive than normal. But again, it depends on who we're playing against. You might even find that Santos might venture forward because he has played number 10, Santos. And then obviously he can play with Meno now. A lot of people are excited about him teaming up with Meno in the sense that so putting Baleba to one side and out of the other three, Meno seems to be the one that's got a bit more energy and a bit more ball progression in terms of being on the ball and driving forward. So that's two players there that could both, with Baleba, I believe, on the left foot, and obviously Meno having a right foot, you've got from both sides where at any time they could pick up the ball and just go and beat a few men and then pick out a pass, hopefully. Only thing I'd say about Baleba is that I don't know him to be a goal scorer, so that'll be interesting to see if that's something he can develop. However, we don't need him to per se, but I think he's got it in his locker to be a 6 to a certain extent. Maybe not that traditional 6 per se, but have that 6 element where he's sitting the deeper of the 2 or the 3. And then obviously he's got that game where he can do the 8 for me, definitely. He can do the 8, he can do that box-to-box sort of role. Sort of seen him do that anyway for Brighton. So there's potentially good combinations there. So hopefully Manchester United can get that over the line. And then moving on really quickly to the attack. That's kind of how we're looking at the moment in the attack. So obviously Rashford's back, whichever number he's going to be, 9, 10. Well, he won't be 10, I'm sure, because Cunha will keep 10. But 9 or 14 or whatever number he ends up with. I would expect him to play on the left. He likes to sort of cut in and all that sort of stuff and take a shot from distance and all that sort of thing. But if he's going to play, he's going to need to sort of create a bit more for me. Then obviously you've got Cunha, again, someone that likes to come inside, but again, Rashford can go on the outside with his pace. He can show a bit of trickery. So he is a little bit more accustomed to that sort of traditional winger sort of role, whereas Cunha sort of tries to drift inside to be like another number 10, basically. And then Mbeumo, before we get into things, but I am sort of seeing him probably start the season up front. And then Sesko, who's coming back from an injury, but I believe he's been in training on the grass. And then Diallo, who is, again, going back more to that traditional sort of winger type, who I need to see more from this season, by the way. I need to see output, basically. Nice that he can press high, and he's good at that. And he can nick the ball up high. He's good at that. But I need to see more assists. I need to see more goals. I need to see more crosses. I need to see more output, basically. And then I'll be much happier with Ahmad then, if that was to happen. So let's get into what we're thinking about Hull. Now, I'm just going to have to change my screen around slightly. Let's see if we can get this going. So, as always, let's have a quick look then in regards. And what we'll also do is just touch on some insights down the right-hand side there. This is on FootMob. And just to give a rough idea of what their predicted lineup's going to be against Hull. So obviously, I'm not going to dwell too much on Hull, but we'll have a quick look at Hull on that left-hand side there. Again, I don't really know the players. I know Mendy. I think that seems to be a name that I know at centre-back there. Ajaya that he's got there as a partnership there. You've got in the middle, Slater. Don't know who that is. I'll be very honest. And we've got Stroud. I'm sure I've heard that name before on the left-hand side there. Crooks just behind McBurney. I've not heard that name for a while. I remember, I'm sure McBurney's played in the Premier League before, and I can't remember whether it was. I'm trying to think if Hull had been up in the last sort of 10 years or so. But McBurney reminds me, it is a name that I'm familiar with, and maybe he's probably played for like a Burnley or something, maybe. And then Balumi, sounds a bit like the cheese, but anyway, Balumi on the right-hand side there. That's Hull. That's Hull. Our side now, obviously, going with what I'm thinking FootMob is doing here. Mbeumo up front, which I'm thinking is going to be the case because obviously Sesko won't be starting against Hull, I'm quite sure. Ahmad on the right, I could probably see that happening. Cunha on the left, and I don't think he'll start Rashford, to be honest. There is an argument that he could start Dorgu because he does like Dorgu down the left. But I'd probably start with Cunha personally. Bruno's got to start, obviously, as number 10, slotting in behind Mbumo. And then the centre of the park, and I'm expecting this because Baleba hasn't signed yet anyway and is injured. So that's another thing as well that I forgot to say earlier, is that's another player potentially that's going to be bought injured. And again, people watching, please put your comments in what you're thinking about a starting lineup. Who would you have up front? For example, who would you have on the wings? Because that's probably where the question marks could be. And the biggies are the two central midfielders. So, as Footbob's saying here, they're talking about Tielemans and Santos. Now, I probably would go with that, as in Santos has had a good pre-season. He's the one that can play that a little bit deeper. I would probably go with that because I haven't seen much of Mano because apparently came back from the World Cup injured, or whether he just couldn't be asked playing that third place game. But obviously hasn't been in pre-season much. And Mount's injured again. So I would probably go with that. We've seen Tielemans a couple of times in pre-season. Probably still needs a little bit. I mean, they have been in training anyway, so hopefully he's a bit closer to being up to speed. He seemed a little bit off it in that last game, but Santos has been pretty good. Again, Santos wasn't the best in that last game either against AC Milan. So it's going to be interesting, but I think I probably would start with that lineup, to be fair. So again, as I'm saying earlier, please put some comments in, please, and we can have an interaction. At the back then, Dalot, right back, although Mazraoui's played quite a bit in pre-season at right back. Shaw at left back. And obviously, again, that's something what we need to talk about when it comes to transfers. We definitely need, in my opinion anyway, a left back. I think that Shaw did very well last season to play the whole season and not get injured somehow. But can we rely on him to not get injured again? I'm not so sure about that. Plus, we need a succession plan. We definitely need a succession plan where we've got somebody coming in to take over from Shaw. So I think this season he could do with a little bit of competition, but someone that can rotate with him and can rotate between the Premier League games, the Cup games, and the Champions League. And then in the back there, I'd probably go with this, to be fair. Maguire has been pretty steady for us over the last sort of couple of years or so. Heaven's starting to emerge as a decent centre-back now. A little bit rash at times, watching him in the pre-season. There was a couple of tackles where I'm thinking, you could have got your timing a bit better there. I think in the Premier League with those tackles, you'll be on the edge there. Definitely would have had a yellow card. There's even arguments that you could end up with 2 yellows and a red or what have you, but he just needs to be careful to try and time those tackles a bit better. The aggression's good. I like the aggression. I think you need to sort of do that thing that was it Keown at Arsenal always used to say, I need to do that reducer. So again, you just need to just unsettle that striker, that number 9 or whatever it may be, that forward player, and just let him know that you're there. And I don't mind that, but it just needs to time his tackles a bit better. And then obviously in goals, Le Mans, there's no argument, no arguments there. Dalot, sorry, he's starting to get his fitness back now. I believe he's now in training. Carl Darlow, our second goalkeeper. Tom Heaton got injured in pre-season. Old guy now, about 50. He ain't coming back anytime soon. So I'm expecting Carl Darlow to be on the bench. Again, what do you think? Anybody watching? What we're thinking about that starting lineup? I'd probably go with a lot of that. Can't say too much about Hull because I don't know too much about Hull, but from our point of view, that should be a team that can do pretty well against Hull. But we are going to get into score predictions in a little while. So I'm just going to quickly, though, touch on the insights because I always think these are quite interesting just to give some sort of interesting facts for both sides in a way. So for Hull there, right at the top there, it's saying won the championship playoffs despite division's second worst XG. Interesting. Hull returned to the Premier League for the first time since 2017. So again, I mean, yeah, it's going back a few years. That, to be fair, what, a good 9 years there. So maybe McBurney wasn't played for Hull back then. I don't know. I don't know how old McBurney is, but I definitely remember that name played in the Premier League. So it could have been for like a Burnley or someone like that. Hull spent over 70 million this summer, including 21.4 million on Nobel Mende from Rayo Vallecano. So for ourselves, apparently we have never lost to a newly promoted team in their opening game of the season. I always thought that we might have slipped up at some point. Maybe just slipped up in the sense that we've drawn, maybe. Under Carrick, United won 12 of their final 17 Premier League matches, and Bruno Fernandes set a new Premier League record with the 21 assists, as I was saying. So we won't look at injuries and stuff. We sort of know what's going on there anyway. So that's just sort of the predicted lineup. Again, don't know what people think. Are you in agreement that you'd start some of these players? I don't think there's loads of options per se. I don't think there's loads of arguments that you can really have, because there's a combination of players still sort of drip fed back in after the World Cup. There's injuries. At one point, I would have been happy enough to start Mount and Santos in the middle there, purely because they've had a good pre-season. Mount was looking very energetic. The combinations between Santos and Mount were looking very good. I was quite surprised about that. And it was one of those where you kind of like play until the wheels fall off a little bit. However, as I've said before, as a lot of people have said, we can't rely on Mount, just like it's very difficult to rely on Luke Shaw and Mount. Again, for me, not really a central midfielder anyway, but if he's going to be playing that role where he is the one that's advanced, but then can come back and sort of snap at heels and help with the high press and stuff like that, because he is quite an intelligent player, to be fair. He does take to tactics pretty quickly. There's a lot of coaches that are desperate to get him back in the side when he's fit, but he just doesn't stay fit, and this is the problem with him. And again, he's not someone that you can really sell, but if you could sell, as sad as it would be, because I think when he does play and he does play well, fantastic player. He's been a fantastic player for Chelsea. It's just sad that he can't stay fit. And here we are. Nice to see you, Leman. Big up to yourself too. Nice to see you. Nice. I'm thankful that you've joined, definitely. Just, I don't know, you've probably missed some of it anyway. We're just sort of talking about the starting lineup, and just if anybody wants to put any comments in about what they feel about who they think should. So again, if you're still there, Leman, just quickly just tell us who you'd like to start in the number 9 position, and then cover who you'd like to be in the 2 central midfield positions. So we've talked about potentially Mbumo starting at number 9 because Sesko's not going to make it. I wouldn't have thought. It could be on the bench potentially. And then in the central midfield area, and I sort of agree with what FootMob was showing there, Tielemans and Santos in the middle. And Leman saying here, Baleba not yet done, increasing my pressure. Yeah, thing is, and this is something I sort of thinking about myself anyways, that we do take our time sometimes with signings. Now, problem is that as much as it seems like it's been a little bit quiet before that news sort of broke a day or two ago, we always knew that we were going to be in for Baleba. I always said on a load of these shows that we've got Baleba up our sleeves and we aren't going to panic with Baleba, because we know that he wants to come to Manchester United, and if everything else fails or falls through, and that sounds bad that we're saying everything else, but generally the other sort of targets that we had, if they fall through, we can always go back to Baleba. Now, when we had Mbumo in that same situation, as much as we know that Mbumo wanted to come to Manchester United, it still took a while to negotiate and get that fee sorted. So the thing is, I think for me, is that until we will never be in a position to be good at negotiation unless we try it. But I think needs must to a certain degree. And I think Kone's still there, don't get me wrong, but he's not got the Premier League proven nature to him. He hasn't got the biggest and best teams after him, so that sometimes can be a red flag for me sometimes. But Wharton looks like he's staying at Crystal Palace, and we haven't really been in for Wharton. Anderson's already gone to City. Tonali's gone to Spurs, weirdly. Fernandes has gone to Spurs, again, weirdly. So, and Tchouameni looks like he's staying at Real Madrid. Camavinga's injury prone anyway, so probably not the best idea to go for Camavinga. So in terms of midfielders, unless you get a no-namer to a certain extent and hope that they do well, there isn't anybody out there. So you've got to revert back. And I think what we've done is we've brought in Santos, we've brought in Tielemans. Hopefully they are good signings and hopefully they are clever signings and they'll work out for us. But we still needed that profile. It looks like Baleba is the man that's got that profile. And I'm quite happy with the Baleba deal, to be fair, and hopefully it does go through. I think what it is that we're very close. It sounds promising because it looks like, ideally, Brighton will want around 75 million. And then ideally, we want to pay about 60 million, 65 million. And I think we will meet in the middle somewhere. I'm seeing that we could probably settle on, I don't know, 65 plus 10 or 70 plus 5 or something like that, where we add it, we put a bit of add-ons in there, but we'll see. But yes, I need it over the line because it feels like we haven't done much. And then can we get a left back in and can we maybe even get a backup striker? But let's just catch up on what Le Mans saying here. Sesko let us down. Yeah, that's the problem. He's injured and he's really struggling to get past that shin injury. Ever since Konate pushed him, so at Old Trafford pushed him down. So anybody that's been to Old Trafford will know that the pitch sort of is raised and it's got quite steep declines from the pitch itself. So when you get to the edge of the pitch, Konate knew what he was doing, shoved him in the back. He slides down the banking and then into the advertising hoarding, and he has hit his shin into that, I believe. So he just hasn't really recovered from that. Or he's struggling to recover from that, should I say. Is there a better option at 9 than Mbeumo? Well, the thing is, the other option is either Cunha, who did all right in that position for Brazil, but that was World Cup, or Rashford. And very telling, Rashford was wearing a number 9 shirt against AC Milan. I mean, it's much of a muchness, isn't it, really? I think all three of them have got a very similar profile. None of the three are strikers. So if we were to play the ball in the air, into the box, none of them are really that great at heading the ball. None of them are really that sort of back-to-goal type striker or someone that can really hold off the man and spin and bring other players into play, that type of thing. So they're not 9s, are they? They're just forward players that can just cover in that role for a couple of games, tops. They're just not... They can never play there for a full season, put it that way. And I prefer all three of them on the wing. But that's our other options, really. I mean, Obe, young player, hasn't really cut it when it comes to men's football. He's gone back down to the youth squad. He's starting to score again. He's trying to slowly build up his confidence. I think the only way that Obi works at Manchester United for me is that he goes out on loan and has a really good season like the Championship, scores maybe 10 or 12 goals in the Championship, gets used to men's football, gets roughed about a little bit, gets tackled a little bit, and then comes back to us. But that's their only options, to be fair. And as Le Mans saying here, I would play Xerxes. I mean, I can't remember if you're a Xerxes fan, Le Mans, but I'm not really a Xerxes fan. And again, he's another one that's not a number 9. He said it himself. He's not a number 9. He'll class himself as some sort of hybrid. Please watch Xerxes. He doesn't strike the ball very well. He likes to finesse. And I always bring that back to playing the FIFA games over the years. But he likes to finesse. He likes to sort of do those sort of nice little cushioned finishes, but he hasn't got a rasping strike in him. He doesn't bust a gut around the pitch. He doesn't have enough strength for me. I think he's a big lad and he's quite tall and everything, but I don't think he's learnt to use his size yet in regards to holding off defenders. And again, all the stuff I was saying earlier about the other three, where have they got the ability to just to hold off the defender and sort of, keep a bit, not an elbow, but sort of have that strength there to hold them off and be able to spin and let other people come into play. So obviously, if the ball comes into Zirkzee, you want him to stand up tall, hold off his man, let a Ahmad bomb on or a Rashford or whoever it may be around him and just bounce the ball off people and get back into the box. He's not that type of player for me. There's Loman saying here, why did all the channels come out with Belabor close breaking streams? Has that happened in the last sort of hour or so? Are you on about today? I've not really seen anything about Belabor really. I think it'll happen probably. I think they'll get pretty close to it either today or tomorrow. I've heard the big accounts talking about whether they'll long it out until the game against Ipswich, because they do like to do an unveiling on the pitch, don't they? And obviously because he's injured, and let's not forget that he's got an ankle injury, he won't play straight away. He'll have to have a bit of rehabilitation to a certain extent. He'll have to get back into things, and then he'll probably, like I say, get revealed on the pitch against Ipswich potentially. But I'm hoping it gets sorted very soon. I'm sure this will get sorted because they are very close in valuation, to my understanding. Midfield of Bruno, Meno, and Santos is what you'd go with. Fair enough. It's definitely got to have Bruno on the tip there. Meno and Santos. Yeah, I mean that I think that will work. It's just that I don't know if Meno's got enough minutes under his belt yet, really, to start. But I think you could see a good combination between Meno and Santos, definitely. He said it was a 9.5. Yeah, this is the thing. He's not a 9, is he? He's classing himself as a hybrid. He's a 9.5. 2 days back. All right, okay. So yeah. No, I think what it was is that, like, Fabrizio and Ornstein and all those sort of big journos, those sort of real big hitters, were given the impression that it was all good to go. But when you read between the lines, like Ornstein would say, I think it might have been more Fabrizio that probably put a bit more clarity on it. But there was that Man United have put an offer in around that sort of 65 million sort of package. However, when you looked into it further, it was basically saying that Brighton was hoping for more. They value it a bit higher. So I don't think they're too far apart, as I said earlier, but we hadn't quite hit the magic number for Brighton. Now, we know how this works. It's very rare that we are able to negotiate a fee down with a club. It normally means that club negotiates the fee up with us. So I think we're going to probably settle around that sort of in between as a final fee after add-ons, around that 70-75 million sort of mark. I'd hate to see it creep into 80s. I just don't think we should be going that high up for Belabor. I think that's after the season he had last season, after the fact that we're buying him injured, his stock is not as high as it was. I don't think we should be creeping into that 80 realms. I think we should be keeping it 75 or lower. But I do want this one over the line, to be fair. I think, personally, yes, Anderson is the flavour of the month, along with Mateus Fernandes and everything else. I don't think Fernandes is better than him. Anderson had a better season than him last season, but I'm not sure that he is worth 116 million and then Belabor's only worth 60, let's say. I don't think there's that much of a disparity between the two. So yeah, I think if we get him, I think we're getting a decent player. But again, I can only talk about not last season, the season before, though. Will you do a watch along? I'm planning to join up, hopefully, with the Football Brotherhood doing a watch along. It'll probably be the Ipswich game, hopefully. I'm in two minds about watch alongs, purely because it's the concentration sort of side of things, obviously, to try and concentrate on the comments, concentrate on the match. Also, I like to hear the match as well. I like to hear commentary. I like to hear the game. And I think normally when you're doing a watch along, you need to turn all that down because you don't want it coming across the mics and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's plans to think about that, definitely. Maybe we'll do one as a joint one, like I say, with Football Brotherhood, Alex and Christian and Football Brotherhood, and hopefully David Speaks Football might join that as well. So that could be something that happens next week, potentially. Have I got plans to do it? I always thought when the channel gets a little bit bigger and there's more following and stuff like that, I might then delve into that. But yeah, it's something that's definitely in the pipeline. Yes, it definitely is difficult to do both. And like I say, if I'm honest, I do like to just have a chill. No, I say a chill. I can't watch Manchester United on the chill, but I like to just be in my living room, watching it on the big screen with the sound really up, surround sound, all that sort of stuff. Listening to commentary if the commentary is all right, that is sometimes, because sometimes people like Carragher and even Neville himself do my head in, but I prefer to do that, chill there, have a drink and watch the game and try and take it in. But the thing is as well, when you're doing content creation, even when I'm doing that, I still have to make notes ready to come on live after the game and give my opinion on the game. So yeah, but it's a good point, Laman. But again, if people want that, and obviously as things get bigger over this season, hopefully we get more people watching, more subscribers, more people wanting stuff like that, then we'll definitely, that's the plan anyway, long term. What are your plans for the channel if you want to share, Dan? It needs to grow. Yeah, that's the thing, and that is the plans, really. The plans also are, Laman, and thank you for asking, because again, I value people like yourself, Laman, who come in and tune in most shows and give your comments and interact. It's kind of like what people like yourself and other people that watch the channel want as well. So obviously everybody seems to do very similar things, don't get me wrong, and you kind of look at the bigger channels like your United Stands and stuff like that and see what they do. But for me, as a smaller channel trying to grow and trying to get more following, it's about trying to do more shows, try to do more live shows, obviously doing shows after games to give my reaction to it, maybe doing a pre-show just before kickoff, so like an hour before. Obviously more collaboration stuff, and then watch alongs, as you've mentioned yourself, Laman. So it's just about where the need or what people are asking for, I suppose, really, Laman. But thanks for asking. Thanks for asking, definitely. And again, give me ideas. People that are watching, give ideas as well. What would you like to see happen? But I just want to grow together as a community. I know everybody says it, but for me, I like to I like people to feel like they're interacting with the show. So you make your comments, we have a chat, we have a dialogue. I want more and more of that. Maybe you need to join other streams in the chat as panelist and make your channel more. Yeah, that's it. And I think that's something that obviously David Speaks Football does. He's been on Football Terrace and stuff like that. And sometimes it's about being invited as well. I mean, it's having the time to reach out to people. Sometimes these panel shows, and obviously no secret, I've got a 9 till 5 job, Monday to Friday. Difficult to join some of these panel shows when they are airing 12 o'clock sometimes in the day, 1 o'clock in the day, 3 o'clock, whatever. Obviously, I'm early today as a bit of a one-off, but very difficult to join some of these panels sometimes when they're coming out at certain tricky times for me when I'm working, basically. But no, you're right. And sometimes it's about reaching out to these shows, and sometimes if you're not big or you've got loads of following, they're not always interested in inviting you on. So it's something that hopefully will progress as time goes on. But again, good point, and keep that coming, Laman. So, yes, we've talked about the predicted lineup. I'm just going to quickly have a look at this Carrick factor here. So really quickly, since Carrick came in, played 17. You look at the points there as well, 39 points. I know this doesn't mean much because it's just a small sample size, but effectively ahead of Arsenal, ahead of City, Bournemouth were doing well, Liverpool did okay-ish, and that's where we were in terms of when Carrick came in. And obviously, if you could do that over a full season, and obviously that's dream world, then who knows? But I'll just quickly put this comment on that Laman's putting here. Dan, honestly, even David's channel hasn't grown much, but as you said, you are working and do content creators part time, then growth speed is normal. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the way to do it is to really be in people's faces and like loads and loads of shorts on YouTube, loads of stuff on social. So obviously, I am on Instagram, I am on TikTok, but it's just finding the time to go on there as much as I can. And it's sometimes it's that viral moment as well. There's something that really makes people come in, and sometimes it's been a lot about people really crashing out and really going mental and doing a Saeed, let's say, outside the ground and stuff like that, and the viewers come in that way. I'm more balanced than that. I just like to talk about football, almost the old school way. And yes, I will show emotions if we lose. Don't get me wrong, show emotions if we win. But in terms of that real crash out and that real effing this, effing that, there shit, Glazers out, just depends on how pissed off I am, if I'm honest. And my favorite about Carrick is he's over listening to yeah, good point, Lamar, actually, because I made this point in one of the shows towards the end of last season where I was starting to see that if things weren't going well, so let's say we went a goal behind or we were still losing and it got to like the 75th, 80th minute, you were just turning around and looking at Holland and saying, any ideas? Holland, any ideas? And I was getting quite concerned by that because, like you said, they're a top coach, an elite coach. Yes, they will confide in their staff. Fergie did, Pep did now and again, Klopp did. That happens. That's why they're there. However, you still have an elite coach that is decisive and says, I need to sub this player off and this player on, for example, or we need to just tweak the tactics. And I just don't know if he's got the enough of that ability to change a game. I think he does struggle a little bit with that. So that's an excellent point, that. And again, I appreciate he'll lean on Holland because Holland's got some experience. He's been in the England setup. He's been at Chelsea. And one thing I've always said about Holland, whether I rate him or not, is that when he was at Chelsea, quite a few of the sort of decent coaches, including, I believe, Mourinho as well, kept him around. So there's normally a good sign when that happens because, again, coaches come in and often want their own backroom staff and they just get rid of the current ones and all that sort of stuff. But he was kept around for a long period of time. Then he went on to England, and you could probably say that in terms of progression, going from Chelsea to England is a trajectory. And obviously the pinnacle is coming to Manchester United. But anyway, it does rely on him quite a bit. But again, it's like saying Fergie relied on Carlos Queiroz or Mullenstein, for example. But they were the ones that were the tacticians in a sense. So I don't know. It's a team it's a team effort, but I do get what you're saying. It does look a bit concerning on TV sometimes, where you could just see him turn into Holland all the time. It is a little bit concerning. This is loud and animated. Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think, again, that's what sells. It's sexy to be loud and animated, I suppose. And maybe I need to be more like that, but it's just when it's not your thing, I just want to be a bit more balanced in the middle. And hopefully there is a pathway for people like me that wants to stay a little bit more balanced and sort of rough with the smooth and try and talk about things in realism. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Do you think that Carrick would have learned a lot from last season and improved his coaching? Well, the thing is, and obviously we'll see this hopefully this season, is that there was an element of Carrick came in, as I keep saying, as the hero, trying to save the day. And I would like to hope, maybe then think, that looking at his time at Middlesbrough, and obviously he got sacked and we can't forget that, but looking at his time at Middlesbrough, he had a way of coaching, and I've talked about it before, where he does like to press high, he does like to attack, he does like to control games if he can. So often, again, this is why he's probably bought the profiles he's bought so far in midfield, is that he wants that element of PSG. I keep mentioning this. He normally has one fullback sitting and the other fullback bombing on and doing the attacking and joining the attack and overlapping. And then you might have the other fullback that sort of comes inside to sort of start the high press if we lose the ball and act as an additional midfielder to a certain extent. So some of that has been coming out in pre-season. So hopefully that is showing some of his coaching capabilities. But do I think he's the same level as Pep? Hell no, because nobody really is. Do I think he's even the same level as Klopp? No. I think it's a struggle to say that he's the same level as like a Maresca, maybe even at City now. So I think there's something there. It's whether he's out there like the top coaches out there. I don't think so. But we'll see a lot more of that this season, Laman. And we can talk more about that as well as the season goes along. You are perfect, Dan. You are calm, composed, and don't change. Yeah, and this is the thing, and I appreciate that, Laman, because I think we seem to be, we seem to think similar on certain things and have that sort of era about us, the same sort of era in terms of watching football and stuff like that. And I think, again, I think sometimes it's like putting on an act when you do all this crazy ranting and raving after game. Don't get me wrong. If I could set up the stream quick enough after a game, you probably will see a bit more emotion. But obviously, in this world, you've got to, especially when you're working on your own, you've got to create your own thumbnails and get your notes together and stuff like that, and all your images that you might want to share on screen and anything else. And that can take a little bit of time after a game, so you kind of decompress after the game a little bit. Sometimes you're still a little bit angry, and that'll come out. But I like to be natural, so I don't want to put on a facade or an acting. I just want to be me. And again, if people don't like that, again, don't get me wrong, I will try and accommodate to a certain extent, but I can't not be me completely, is all I'll say. But we'll have to see how that works out for me. Thanks for that, Laman. So yes, and again, don't get me wrong, there will be emotion over the season. I'm quite sure it'll not go perfectly over 38 games. It will not go perfectly in the Champions League. We may have another Grimsby moment, and I did while out on the Grimsby moment. You may not have been following me back then, Laman, when we got battered by Grimsby in the cup, but trust me, the emotion came out then. So, what we're going to do now then is, I think we've talked about the lineup, we've talked about signings, and hopefully that Baleba one gets over the line very, very soon. I think it's probably time to talk about a score prediction. But before we get into that, let's just quickly share this. And this is just, I did one that the Premier League did and what they spat out of their supercomputer in terms of where they think that we might finish. This is just what the athletic writers have predicted, and we'll cover that. I'm just going to remove a few things off here, and then I'm going to be able to just quickly have... get rid of that and that, and then I'm going to get into the score prediction. But yes, let's just cover that first, and then we are coming towards the end of the show now, guys. And obviously, you can have your Friday back and have a happy Friday. But big one tomorrow. So tune in for that. So Arsenal at the top, and again, let me know what you think, Laman, and anybody else watching, in regards to if you have any agreement to how they're panning out this league and their predictions for who's going to win the league. This is 2-0, Bruno and Boomer. Yes, we're going to get into that now. So, Arsenal to finish on top again. Obviously, they've brought in Bruno G, so does that sort of push tip the balance? Man City second. Interesting. It's all going to be about what happens with any new signings and whether Maresca can emulate anything that Pep were doing. Chelsea third. Interesting. Again, they've got Alonso there. Did well over at Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. Didn't do so well at Real Madrid per se. Probably did better than we think, or that's been expressed from Real Madrid. Because you know what Real Madrid are like when their standards. They want a certain way of playing and they want certain cups. And if they're losing against Barcelona in terms of the league, they're not happy. So Mourinho better watch out. Manchester United fourth. Liverpool fifth. Villa sixth. And Tottenham seventh. Now, really quickly, if I was doing this, I would probably go with Arsenal winning it again, because I just don't feel like any of the other teams have done enough to challenge them. Second, tough one this, but only because they've been there or thereabouts. I know there's no Pep, and I think that's going to be a big thing, and no Rodri as well. Let's not forget that. I'm still going to put City second. Third, I'm actually, if it works out for them, going to go with Iriola at Liverpool. Third. Could be a strange one, people are probably thinking. I'm thinking that we can do fourth. And then for the fifth and sixth, I'm probably going to say that Villa will probably drop down a little bit, and it'll probably, I think Tottenham might squeeze in. Really do. So Tottenham fifth, and maybe, oh, I'm forgetting Chelsea, aren't I? Tottenham fifth, Chelsea sixth, and Villa seventh. That's what I'm finishing on. We'll have to revisit that. So, you've put here, Laman, we are second. Are you saying that we're going to finish second? Is that where you, is that your prediction, Laman, that we'd finish second? So we're going to come into, like I said, coming towards the end of the show now. We're just going to do this score prediction. So, yes, so Laman's saying yes, second. Okay, I see that. I can see where you're coming from. I just don't know. I think what it is for me, I will probably change my mind at the end of the transfer window if Baleba comes in, which I'm expecting, if we get a left back, and maybe if we get like cover for striker. I would like to see a centre-back, but I don't see that happening. From third to second this time. Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I have to wait and see what we do in the transfer market first. I think currently, if the transfer window was to end today and we haven't got Baleba and we've done nothing else, I don't know about that. So, score prediction then. What we're thinking. So we'll go back to... so you're saying second with Baleba. Okay. I see that. Yeah, there's a good shout. That's a good shout. So, Laman is saying 2-0. Bruno to score and then Mbeumo to score. Okay. I'm also thinking that this whole game will not be as easy as people think. And I'm going to say, although it's not going to be as easy as people think, I'm still going to say that we're going to go for a win, big win, and it's going to be 2-1. Going with 2-1. In terms of goal scorers, I think Bruno might get on the score sheet, actually. I'm fancying Mbeumo to score after the pre-season he's had. And I'll probably join you there, Laman, and say Bruno could score as well, maybe a penalty. But I do think we are prone to conceding. That's my problem sometimes. But definitely in this game, in terms of success, or to get some success in this game, we definitely need to start fast. We definitely need to be clinical. So we get the chances and Mbeumo puts them away, for example, Bruno, whoever it may be, and stop being indecisive like Bruno was in that last game. And we just need to stay switched on defensively, because... Again, we've seen it against AC Milan and other teams where we've gone behind early, and we're always sort of chasing the game. But anyway, are you saying why do we think we concede? Yeah, I think we will probably concede a goal, whether it be from a set piece, corner, whatever it may be. It's purely because I'm not sure that our defense is quite right. And I think we could be so much better if we had a solid, put your money on it, which centre-back pairing would play week in, week out. A little bit like what Arsenal have had at times, where they have Gabriel and Saliba, for example. Once they've got those two and they're solid, it sometimes doesn't matter what they've got at full-back. Those centre-backs change the game. Now, if we can get De Ligt back and pair him up with even Maguire, for example, or pair him up with Martinez or whatever, I think if you've got a constant, and I think when you look at De Ligt, I don't know if you rate De Ligt, Le Mans. But if you've got a constant, you can pair them up with anybody normally. So, like, going back to Arsenal, they don't really have a player as good as either Gabriel or Saliba, but if they did have, then you could play either one of those two with anybody else. If they're decent enough, they bring them up. So I think if we get De Ligt back around October time, that'd be good. That'd be good. So, like saying, 2-1 is what I'm thinking. I do think we'd probably concede a goal. Hopefully, we do get a clean sheet. Hopefully, Le Mans, his World Cup, can put that behind him. It did concede a bit against AC Milan, but again, it is pre-season. So, just sort of a question for people as well as we sort of come to the end of the video here now, the show. What would you say success for Manchester United this season? I know obviously Le Mans already said to finish, he's finishing second, but what would you see as success? What would you be happy with in terms of league position, in terms of how we're doing cups, in terms of what do you want to see from Carrick as well? Do you want to start I mean, you asked me the question, Lamana, earlier in the show about whether I'm going to see some better coaching maybe from Carrick. Are you expecting that yourself? What are you expecting from Carrick this season? And what are you seeing as success? So let's say we fast track to May next year. What would you have liked to have seen happen for you to feel we've had a successful season? And it doesn't have to be win the league because, you know, that's going to be very difficult. But what would you have liked to have seen to say that it's been a successful campaign? De Ligt and Leacher, this is the problem, they're unreliable. And it's nice to have Leacher back in, but then he just gets injured. And what do you do then? You get used to him and then he gets injured. So Le Mans saying here in terms of success, I believe, second and a trophy plus quarterfinal of Champions League. Well, you know what? I can't argue with that, Le Mans, because for me, I was seeing success as finishing in the Champions League positions. So it could be anywhere from, obviously I don't see us being first, but anywhere between first and fifth, call it, and getting a trophy. So whether that be the FA Cup or the League Cup, and then having a good run in the Champions League. I didn't really think about what the good run would look like, but a quarter-final, I see you. And I think just to get into knockouts would be good. So I'm not too dissimilar to what you're saying there, Laman. Definitely. But again, as always, thank you for your comments, Laman. Thank you for your engagement and thank you for your support, because it's definitely needed. You've put all my eggs on Carrick's baskets. Expect him to do last season's magic of getting us third, but I'm being told that was became one game. Yes. So I see what you're saying there. So yeah, you're right. I think people are saying that. I think I've probably said it myself. It's generally would say it's easier to do one game a week. Less fatigue, less sort of things to think about. Competitions are different. You have to set up differently. Champions League compared to Premier League. I think that game against AC Milan, although it was against our old boss, I think it opened your eyes in terms of what you're going to expect in the Champions League with these teams on the continent, these teams in Europe. They do play differently, and you've got to get used to that. So that was a good eye opener for me. And a lot of these teams in Europe do have quite high possession stats at times. They do know how to put the foot on the ball. They do know how to hold the ball. So it was a good sort of lesson there. But as you're saying there, Laman, and we're coming to the end anyway, I'll leave for the shower in 2 minutes. Are you ending or continuing? Yep, no, I'm ending now, Laman, anyway. So thank you again for your support, Laman, as always. That question's out to people to also answer it as the show's ended, because I will come back to people's comments. But yes, let's get into things against Hull City. First game of the season, tomorrow, 12:30. I believe it's on BT Sport. Obviously, the Amazon cameras will be around, I'm sure, as well. But we need to start well. So let's start with a win. 2-1 I'm going with. I think Le Mans went with 2-0. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Dan Talks United. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like, and don't forget to share. But see you tomorrow, people, against Hull. I'll be having a show after the game, and I'll see you there. See you later, people.